Well, from now on, everything is recorded through Mindstrong LLC. So the hair and the face, the
Oh
visual,
my
the
God.
blur, the whole thing is on there. So welcome to the
Oh,
show, my man.
oh, hey, dude, thanks for having me, man. I'm truly like a fanboy. So I'm actually like super stoked right now. I literally just sat in a sauna for 60 minutes, listened to a whole podcast of you.
I love it, dude. Well, yeah, we got Robbie Rowland with us today, who I think I came to recognize or learn about you through Rachel Belkovec. Does that sound accurate?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that was going to be my first question to you, actually. It was like, how'd that connection go? Because I remember when was it? It would have been during the summer.
Okay.
I saw her, and I think we brought up a conversation about you guys,
Yeah.
and that's when I first learned about you. So
Okay.
coincidentally, it's apparently it's the first time you learned about me too.
Yeah, that had to have been it, man. And then obviously, so that kind of comes back to what was that? Was that where you meet her with the Cardinals? Is that how that worked?
Yeah, so she was my strength coach, or
Okay.
well, no, she was the coordinator. So when I
Okay.
my first year there, she was that was her first year as coordinator, strength coach, and it was funny because at the time, dude, I was kind of just like just a whatever type of human
Yeah.
being, like just went through the motions, through
Yeah.
hard,
Yeah.
so on
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
forth. And then it kind of was after that my life journey took off about learning and discovering certain things and implementing certain things. And
That's
I'm just a
awesome.
naturally curious person, dude. And I remember her and I connected again a couple years later, and like we hopped on a phone call or something, and I'm talking about like flow state and
Yeah.
freaking prefrontal cortex and all this stuff. And she's like, "Whoa, dude! Like, who's this guy?" Like kind of like didn't know I was a nerd,
Yeah.
and kind of just went from there, man. So.
Dude.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I'm gonna
life,
peel
right?
into that nerdness with you because I kind of got that nerd category too. So it feels good to nerd out with other
Yeah,
nerds.
yeah. No, I sensed that. I did sense that. So I have a quick question for you, actually,
Lay it
because
on me.
I don't know this now. So you played ball though, right?
Yeah, I was with the Brewers. So
Okay.
I was 2013 to 2015. Were you still playing? Were you playing in those years?
Right. Yeah, I was playing. So that was gonna because I remember when I was listening to the podcast, you mentioned something about the Brewers. I didn't
Yeah.
know if you were playing or like coaching in that system or not.
Sure.
Because my first couple years I was with the D-backs
Okay.
and we played Helena all the time.
What year? What
So
year was that?
but that was 2010 and 11.
Okay, so you got
Yeah.
drafted. So you when were you drafted? Well, let's hear the
Dude,
story.
I'm a high school guy, man. Don't ask me my story. So this is so funny, dude. So anytime someone like brings me on their show and they're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, man, like, give me your story," and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
"Dude, how much time do you got, man?" Like,
Well, give me
I
the
just did a
cliff notes
Baseball
of it.
America podcast and it
Oh,
was
okay.
literally 4 hours, bro. It was crazy. But yeah, Cliff Notes. Whoa, Cliff Notes. Yeah, I used those back in my day. They were called Spark Notes. But okay, so I got drafted at 18.
Okay.
High school guy, third rounder, 88th overall. Shameless plug.
Yeah.
Um, and then kind of went on this path of like failure for the first time in my whole entire life at
Sure.
anything because I come from a small town. And I just succeeded over and over again,
Yeah.
so on and so forth, and got into pro ball. First year was okay. Second year was that self-discovery period of
Yeah.
like, all right, now I'm in extended spring training. I'm isolated. I'm by myself. I'm losing my identity. Wait a second, I don't have an identity. And then like I'm kind of throwing a bunch of stuff up against the wall, seeing what sticks. I'm having a ton of input from external forces, and kind of just totally lose myself. I like lead the Pioneer League and like ERA of all
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's coming back, right? So
Okay.
I repeated because I signed early and played in 2010 and actually threw pretty well, I thought, and then came back, dude. And you know how it is. Anytime you repeat a level, there's frustration and so on and so forth. And
Yeah.
yeah, so then I experienced that whole failure thing and learned a lot about myself. Go fast forward, got traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates, kind
Okay.
of rediscovered myself, reinvented myself, started throwing little sinker ballers. Holy Cliff Notes version.
No, this is great.
And yeah, and then had success with them in my first year, kind of the whole like change of scenery type thing, that could be great for an athlete, was fantastic. And then coming back that next year, never really learned from past failures and tried to do too much. I'm a
Yeah.
perfectionist by trait,
Yeah.
which I thought it was a great thing until I learned it wasn't, could be a bad thing too.
Sure.
And so then I kind of went down that whole path of like totally losing myself again because of that, and me being a perfectionist, it's always like more, more, more,
Right.
right? But
Right.
in the baseball world, obviously that could be a disaster.
For sure.
And then fast forward a couple years later, got released by Pittsburgh, went on another path of self-discovery,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then I got signed by St. Louis, and then finally kind of came into my own and learned more about me and kind of started to implement everything that I needed to implement from past failure
Sure.
and learn, and then finally started having success, and then injury happens, and then kind of the injury thing, that's
Yeah.
never fun.
No.
Not gonna put any blame on anything or anyone or just poor movement qualities and stuff. But yeah, man. And then I ended up getting released by St. Louis after my second big league camp, I think it was in
Okay.
17, went the indie ball route, pitched well in indie ball, got signed by the Texas Rangers. And then the whole, then I had lat surgery. I blew up
Oh,
my freaking lat.
jeez.
Actually
Yeah.
been out since then, been trying to rehab that. But that kind of leads us into the whole like blessing in disguise, because after I blew my lat out, I just fully like dove into my brand and like my business, and that
For
was
sure.
fantastic. And I'm sure, as we'll talk about more in
Yeah.
this podcast, like the whole like isolation and just creativity and
Oh yeah.
creation,
Yeah.
dude, like I love that stuff. And I think that's what's so cool about being on like the entrepreneur front right now, is like every morning and every day is like, dude, what like can I create today? I got 38 sticky notes everywhere with
Yeah.
things on it. And
Yeah.
I think that's the coolest part. The podcast I was just listening to that you did was you said something about like how obviously the times are terrible right now, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the positive of it is like, dude, we are in an area where we can self isolate
Yeah.
and then just like, dude, create, like learn. And
Yeah.
I think that's such the beauty of it.
Oh, it's awesome, man. That's a phenomenal breakdown, and I'm gonna dive into that even deeper because there's a lot of gold in that. But no, I love what you're saying too, because it's, the greatest working of arts of across humankind have come through that isolation. You look at when you're in the
Right.
thick of things, when you're experiencing that release, new team, new environment, new coaches, new injury, new whatever, level up, big league camp. Now I'm not in all these sort of things. You're in it,
Mm,
so you're in the thick of it. And you do
mm,
that as an entrepreneur too. When I first started my company, it was, I'll take every single coffee meeting imaginable, because you don't know how to say no, and you feel like you have to network
right.
with everybody, right? And you
Right.
just
Right.
learn, you get taken advantage of, all kinds of failures. But then you have to design times in your day or weeks. I've always tried to each quarter pick a point on the map and go camp and isolate myself. I've been doing that for a few years. I've found a lot of success with that. And now
Mm,
it's like amplified. So now it's a time where you can really take advantage of it because it's the forefront of your mind. But what happens when you do that is your subconscious starts to work for you. You get to see things that you've experienced that you couldn't really see while you were in them, because you were
mm,
just trying to play Major League Baseball. So here I am, this
right.
high school guy who just goes all out. I got a third round tag, so I got a pretty good shot at this. I've obviously I've had some talent and some success. So it's like go, 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 go. There's the perfection in you, right? And then all of a
Mm,
sudden, it's like you don't have much time to really develop a different arsenal of thinking, unless you have some isolation.
right. Right. No, you hit it. Like, I mean, obviously you hit it on the head, dude. Like freaking A, man. But it's so true. But it's funny too, because like I think we're in an era, like a generation right now, where we long for companion,
Oh
and
yeah,
like we're so connected to everything,
yeah,
connected to whether it be like other humans or just our phones or our screens or whatever.
yeah.
But like it's funny too, because obviously like the perception of that thought is geeky, right?
Right.
Where it's like, okay, like that's kind of a weird outlook on it. Maybe it's becoming more mainstream now,
Yeah.
but it's still like at the end of the day, I think people, the perception of it is a little whatever. But like when you fully embody that and you really like take the blue pill in that
Oh
thing, dude,
yeah.
and
Oh
you
yeah.
actually face like the recognition of like, holy smokes, dude, like I implemented this stuff because I saw someone do it on Instagram. I thought it was geeky at first, but now I have all this time. So now I'm out barefoot earthing,
Hmm.
and I'm sitting by a freaking campfire, and I'm like out in nature, dude. I'm tent camping, but all of a sudden like I'm having these like thoughts in my head, and
Yeah.
like I'm having these questions. And now that's like kind of provoking me to ask more questions and learn and like
Yes.
self-discovery and all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, dude, like it's so powerful. The
Oh yeah.
thought, like just everything about it, right? Like
Yeah.
the thought
Yeah.
pattern and like the ability to think, and then like the human element of just natural curiosity and just wanting to consume information
Yeah.
and learn.
Yeah.
I think again, I know it sounds geeky. Like trust me, man. Like everyone listening to this, like I was a high school kid. I didn't know anything but how to throw a baseball and shoot a basketball. That was about it. But then like you kind of just start to learn about yourself, right? And you
Right.
start learning through that because you're isolated in professional baseball. I mean,
Oh
you know
yeah.
how it is. I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're around your whole team, but dude, like I mean I said it today when I did a little segment before I jumped in the cold tank about like how you're in the loneliest place in the world is like the pitcher's mound, right? So
Yeah,
it's
for
like
sure.
you spend a lot of time in your head. You spend a lot of time with your own thoughts.
Right.
And you learn a lot about yourself. And there's two people I think that I've kind of come across in baseball. There's the guy that kind of just accepts it for what it is and then
Mhm.
goes about his journey like, okay, it's there, but I'm not going to dive too much into it. And then
Sure.
there's the guy that like really takes it in, right?
Yeah.
Like really tries to like discover and dive into that. And it's funny because that second person, I'm in that category, but like you can almost utilize it for good and bad, right? So like
Well,
that
yeah,
diving into the
I was going to keep you on that because I love how you said that, and I was even going to ask you, do you think that diving into yourself, because diving into your own thinking patterns becomes very scary at times too, right?
100%.
How have you navigated that system? Have you had some times, like you've mentioned a few times, where you have identity shifts, which sports forces that out of you. Anytime you get released, it's like a forced identity shift, which is incredibly
Right.
shattering too, right? But
Oh,
what have
yeah.
you sort of picked up on or peeled on in that reframing of mind?
Well, dude, it's funny you mentioned that because, and I know I wanted to bring this up in this podcast because when I was with Pittsburgh, it was the first organization that I was with that put a high emphasis on the mental training.
Okay.
And coming into that organization, it was like, okay, it was there, and we have like mental coaches now.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing, right? I
Right.
mean, at the time, I was 20,
Sure.
so my whole entire kind of journey up into that point, you know, through 2 years of pro ball at that time was kind of just a very, you know, simplistic approach to the game,
Yeah.
which, as you know, could be extremely beneficial
Oh
for
yeah.
a guy, you know, the whole KISS, keep it simple, stupid,
Oh
right?
yeah.
I kind of
Oh
fall
yeah.
into that category as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, now this becomes a thing, right? So this becomes an actual deal that you do where you go to these mental strength or mental coaches
Coaches,
and
right.
you train your mental conditioning, right? So now it was funny for me in that process because now it's like it's on my mind,
Mm-hmm.
and me being who I am as a perfectionist, it was like, okay, well, now I have to take this task of mental training and I have to be the very best at it. How can I
Yeah.
be the very best at it?
Yeah.
I have to do it,
Do it.
think it, freaking
Right.
practice it, train it, all of this stuff, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now it's no longer like that subconscious thought, right? Like it's there,
Yeah.
freaking, you know, in my brain always, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think as soon as that kind of happened, as soon as I started failing from the physical standpoint of performance, obviously, that's when I was like, okay, well, I need to be better mentally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I need more reps. And I remember like listening to your podcast earlier today, it was so funny because you were talking about like how, you know, stress is kind of just stress. Like you wouldn't just throw freaking weight on a barbell if the guy's form wasn't that good. It was
Yeah.
kind of the same
Yeah.
thing
Yeah. Yeah.
where me being a perfectionist, it was like more input, more input. I want more. I want more. Okay, now I'm struggling. I want more. You know how it is in baseball
Right.
where like, you know, coaches and all in good love, coaches, instructors, coordinators, all of these guys, they want you to succeed. And the best way that they know how to give information is give it in abundance, right?
Yep.
Like here's this, here's more, here's more.
Yep.
And if you're a dude like me who freaking longs for input and longs for information, I'm going to seek that out any which way I know how.
Yeah.
And I know I just went off on a total
No,
tangent,
it's
but it was
great.
like, it was kind of that same thing, right? Where I wasn't really hammering the underlying issue of why like the struggle was occurring. It was just more of like, okay, well, how can I consume as much as I can consume? Because I think my thought patterns or my overall being tells me that that's the way to tackle a problem is, you know, get all of the information that you can get. And
Yeah.
then therefore, you know, and again, remember, like, mind you, I was young, so I didn't have that so-called professional filter, right?
Right.
Where you can kind of have a ton of input and then filter like, okay, this makes sense. This doesn't really apply to me. All right, this really does work. So maybe I'll kind of, you know, consume more of that type.
Yeah.
So all of this input was trying to almost modify the way that I went about my work. So honestly, don't even know if I answered your question, but there was a tangent there that I needed to get out.
No, well, I think it's relevant. It's very relevant because you're talking about, so let's create some off of what you just said. Let's take that and create a lot of head shaking from a lot of people who would listen to this that are athletes or perfectionists, because
Right.
it's almost like the gift of that strength becomes your massive curse, right? And so then
100%.
you get all these loads of information, and it's the same thing of coaches. You look at, and I was a victim of this too. I still do this at times, where you really want to prove yourself, so that comes through an abundance of giving information,
Right.
right? And so you're in this constant balancing act of trying to learn learners, and then also at the same time is you as a learner, you also need to learn
Hmm.
yourself as a learner. And
Hmm.
when you're in perfection type deals or high performing environments or high platforms, the urgency to chase that dragon is right now. So you look
Right.
at it as, I need this information now, 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 now.
Right. Right.
And that typically comes in the form of more, which is how you see high performers end up getting hurt at some point, right? Because
Hmm.
they add, and there's not that isolation. There's not that time
Right.
to
Right. Right.
digest it or create your own practical wisdom or any sort of understanding on it. And you have to do that through time. How long that is, I'm not sure. Do people become wiser when they're younger, when they're older? I think that's a relevant question to ask you, because you did go in as a high schooler, and you see
Yeah.
these high schoolers. It was weird because when I think back to it, yeah, there would be 19-year-old high school kids who were way out there. But then there was also 19, 20-year-old high school kids who weren't way out there. And then there were guys who were 25 who had been in pro ball out of high school, and they were, savvy vets. It was just, there was all
Hmm.
kinds of things. So I kind of even want you to take that even further of,
Mm.
when did you start taking information mentally and physically and really start honing in on yourself, not just as a baseball player, but personally? Because it seems like you have a lot of
Right.
curiosity and learning now as a beginner, as an older person. But did you learn that need or beginner mindset through sports? Like, how did that start kind of concretely serving you well?
Yeah, dude, that's really good stuff. So for me, it comes back to like identification,
Okay.
right? So like that's a huge like staple of even like for my clients. Like,
Yeah.
dude, I think the biggest thing that obviously we can do is we can throw around the terms like control the controllables,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Something that's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
mainstream now.
Yeah.
But it holds true to the sense of like you can start identifying yourself at a very like young age, and obviously it's the characteristic traits of like who kind of needs to really dive into that concept and who just needs to throw the ball, right?
Sure.
Like just throw it, whatever.
Yeah.
But for me it was true in the sense of like who was I, and then who was I like trying to be, right?
Mm.
So in pro ball you obviously have that like I was mentioning earlier, that external input, and all you want to do is, at least for me and my personality type, is like people pleaser. So you want to you want to take what they're like kind of offering in the sense of, hey, this is our model pitcher,
Yeah.
right? So you
Yeah.
got to be this type of way. You got to be a dog. You got to be like the workhorse,
Yeah.
freaking bean somebody if they take a hack on you, like all this
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So like yeah, I mean, I get it. So what started happening was as soon as I got into pro ball, I think I kind of tried to be somebody that I wasn't. And I
Mm.
tried to like take on this essentially like this mantra of somebody that didn't allow me to be at my full like physical
Yep.
performance capacity, if you will.
Yep.
So for me, and it's funny that it kind of the timing of everything, obviously in sports, it works this way sometimes, but I really didn't kind of like develop that true identification process until I was kind of like 24, 25, and this is 6, 7 years in,
Yeah,
right?
man.
So it was at that time where I was like, okay, well, we can sit here and talk all the live long day about how you perform better in flow, and everyone wants to be flow state, get in the zone, and yeah, these are mainstream kind of topics, but it's like, okay, well, how do you get there? And for me, I thought it was always about like, okay, well, I'm going to listen to these coaches and listen to these instructors about how to approach pitching and how to approach, attacking guys and this and that, without totally like sitting back and having that self like isolation we were
Yeah.
talking about, and truly going, okay, well, when was I at my best? and what was I doing when I was at my best.
Absolutely.
So this is why I tell people all the time, like getting released has been like the best thing for me in my
I'm sure.
personal like development,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's gives you that kind of that time to self-reflect and really truly identify like, okay, what is it that I need to do,
Hmm.
and how is it that I need to approach this game to be at my best and give myself the best opportunity to have success.
Right on.
And that was truly like, okay, I was 88th overall. Right. Like,
Yeah.
not to be cocky. I'm not like a cocky
Right.
guy, but it was kind of just the writing on the wall of like, okay, I was doing something right. Now, what was my mindset then? What was my approach to how I went about that work? And it was simplicity, man. It was truly like, and I know this sounds like super cliche, but whatever. It's the fact that like I was going out and showing a tremendous amount of gratitude towards my like ability to play the game,
Yeah.
and then just literally having fun with it, right?
Hmm.
So then what happens when I get into pro ball at 18?
Hmm.
I'm an 18-year-old. I'm the youngest like in the league,
Yeah.
and it was like, okay, don't do anything that sticks out, Robbie, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
do X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
because you don't want to upset anyone, and so on and so forth. So it was like, okay, now I'm in a bubble, right? Don't be myself. Don't show my true personality. I mean, you see, like I'm a very like flamboyant, like
Yeah.
outgoing guy.
Yeah.
So now like I'm in this bubble. I'm not who I am on, off the field, like whatever. And now I'm trying to conform to what the organization that I'm with kind of wants me to be.
Yeah.
And like I said, man, I mean, that's that self-identification process that, maybe we can have this conversation too. Like maybe if I go to college, I learn that,
Right.
right? We can always sit here and say like the
Yeah.
what ifs of everything,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
it is what it is. But that's why I think it's like so crucial to like, really put a mental emphasis on that identification, because I think a lot of people need that. And when things go wrong, so for example, in pro ball, when I failed, that was my first time ever failing. So I had to kind of learn that on the fly. But if I would have went into that season like already having been through that identification and
Yeah.
knowing what my kind of ticks were that allowed me to get back on that straight and narrow path, I would have been obviously better equipped.
Right.
But that's the path of self-discovery, right? Like it's beautiful in that sense.
It really is, man. You're touching on a lot of points that are highly important, and it happens a lot. I would almost say that this what you're saying happens more than it doesn't happen, right? And people
Oh,
struggle with
100%.
that. Yeah, it's a very common thing that we're talking about. I was the same way, and when I get out of it, I'll ask this as you're an entrepreneur sense, because when I got out of baseball, because you sit there and now when you're going to identify with something new, the goal is to identify with it better than where you were in the
Right.
past, right? So
Right.
you're sort of
And
looking at,
learn.
yeah,
Right.
and learn. So when I start an entrepreneur track, it's like, well, okay, how did I fail at baseball, or how did I not move forward in baseball because of the way I thought, right? Or sort of things like that. Now, what I've
Right.
noticed and seen a lot with a lot of athletes, and then try to take into my own life, is the terming of demystification. So I try to demystify things. Whereas when I first got to pro ball, I was the exact opposite of you. I played 6 years of college baseball. So I
Oh,
went,
wow.
yeah, so I had injuries and 2 red shirts in college and was a shortstop, moved to pitcher. Long story short, I'm in my 6th year and I signed as a free agent. So I didn't get to pro ball until I was 23, right? And
Uh-huh.
then I get into it. I was in the same spot in low A for 3 years, and that was it, right? But what got to me, similar to what you're saying, they wanted you to be that person, right? And it's hard. It's really hard on you. Where I struggled with it was I had spent almost a decade trying to get a major league logo on my shirt or on my shorts or
Right.
on my hat.
Right.
And
Right.
then I got it, and I didn't have that necessarily, that issue of it. I didn't really think of it as anything outside of myself, but I thought of it as, oh my gosh, I got here. And I
And then
couldn't,
it's, yeah.
yeah, and I couldn't bring with me the grit or the work ethic that I had to get there, and it was like I would ask myself or demand myself to work hard as I could, or have all this purpose. But I realized when I got to pro ball that my ambition was just to get to that result. There was never anything
Yeah.
to sustain that. There was
Right.
nothing outside of that mountain. It was like get to a peak, and you look at that now, and that's where I think even what's happening across the world right now with the pandemic, it really just makes you sit with the way that you view and perceive things in general. Right. So, I mean, for me, I've used that demystification to help me as an entrepreneur. But when I think about it with you, does that stick? Anything you've done post baseball? Like, how do you look at yourself now with the way that you think or you learn or you coach? Does that part play a role into it at all, or do you stay on?
Oh yeah.
Does that tie in a little bit with that identification?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Dude, what you said is like fantastic. And I want to piggyback off that just for like a
Go
little
ahead.
second
Go
because
ahead.
I know what that and so here's the thing, dude, that like is really intriguing to me is the subconscious of that.
Yeah.
Because even for me, and like I think I'm at that point now in my life development where I can kind of look back at my journey in high school because um when I was in high school it was all about like, okay, I'm like first round, first overall, like let's go, dude,
Yeah.
we're making this push, we're going to get drafted. It's not about like money for me at that time, but it was like I
Right.
want to be the very best that I could be. Here we go. And then it was almost like when it happened, even though I've always been the hardest worker in the room, I've prided myself on the ability to kind of just, control the, like I said, controllables, your
Yeah.
work ethic, all this, so X, Y, Z. It was more of like that subconscious thought, or the subconscious of like, okay, I set that goal to get drafted, but the goal should have been like, dude, like, let's see how good I can be as
Sure.
a baseball player,
Yeah.
and I think that holds true for me too. So as soon as I got drafted and I got into pro ball, I always kind of, I don't even know how to put it into words, but there was a little like subconscious effort in that where it was like a brake pedal, like kind
I
of I
love that.
took a step back
Yeah.
instead of going forward. But yeah, dude, to answer the question, like absolutely, because we're just a product of environment,
Yep.
right? Like, I mean, all my life experience is what I've kind of consumed throughout the journey, and therefore now I am a product of all of those events. So therefore I am, essentially like that bias
Yeah.
towards how I approach other events, right?
Yeah. That's
So
gold.
the biggest reason why like I just wake up every morning like super ecstatic to like work with clients, man, because it's like I know that for a lot of them I've been there, right? Like
Yeah.
I've been through that. And
Yeah.
now that I have like the ability, right? So like I have that kind of responsibility in a sense to give them my
For
experience.
sure.
And that's so powerful to me, right? We talk about foundation and like what fuels you, what is your
Yeah.
why, and like
Yeah.
I mean all that holds true. But yeah, I think there's a lot to that because you even mentioned it with yourself, and as a coach, you wanna be the guy, dude, that's like helps,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
our natural human instinct when we think of help and coach and teach and instruct is like, here it is, man,
Yeah.
here's everything, just
Yeah.
push it down your throat. But now for me is like now I'm able to take that step back, hit the brakes a little bit and like really almost assess, right? Like, okay, what is this person, not just as a thrower, right? Not just from the physical side of like if I'm looking at his throwing mechanics, but like let's learn more about him as a
Nice.
person. How does he handle information? How does he consume information? Where is he at in his mental walk, right? Like
Absolutely.
where is he at in that journey? I've been a guy, dude, we didn't even touch on this. I went through the yips.
Yeah.
I've been like the mental midget,
Oh
dude.
yeah.
Like trust me, it sucks.
Yeah.
And I think there's a right and a wrong way to kind of approach those individuals. So yeah, man, like like I said, I think it's so cool that having to obviously grind through those life moments, those
Yeah.
professional moments of the super uncomfortness and worrying about what other people are thinking about you because you can't throw the freaking baseball where you want it and
Right.
X, Y, and Z, dude, so on and so forth. But it's so cool to having now, like you said, kind of be at that point in your life where you can now look at that journey and pick pieces out and go, you know what, dude, like that's a great learning curve. Now how can I best use that to apply it to a betterment of somebody else?
Hmm.
Because when you're in it, dude, you don't see that like
No.
light at the end of the tunnel. You're just
No.
sitting there grinding every single day to get out of it.
Yeah, so you touched on something. I don't know if you've heard me say this or not. I had the yips too. That was one of my
Oh no, I haven't.
that
I
was
haven't
what
stalked you enough.
yeah, that was my big finale. Was I went out, I couldn't throw strikes anymore, and I got bad.
Was that what got you like sorry to interrupt you, but I'm curious, was that what got you kind of like really gung ho of like the mental performance thing?
Yeah, so what really got me going? I when I was in school, remember I to go back to the 6 years in college. If you're not in grad school, I always tell people if you're not in grad school after 6 years, I mean, come on, something
That's
went
okay.
wrong, So I was really in
That's
grad school more so because I was just playing ball for so long. But I chose sport performance with a huge branch of sports psychology, because just like you, right? Like that's probably what most athletes would choose. Okay, this will help me become a better baseball player. So I chose that out of just the fact that I was still in school. Now I carried that into pro ball and always was interested in the mental side. But how you're saying how you came to it with the Pirates and wanted to dive into it, I wanted to debunk it. So I wanted to dismantle sports psych. I wanted to go, okay, I understand control versus non-controllables. Tell me why. Show me how I progress. Tell me how my mind gets better.
Parasympathetic and sympathetic. Yeah, I get all that.
So I wanted to know how, if this is so, what really pissed me off in a large degree was every time I would talk or be in rooms or hear rooms, it was always it's 90% mental, and people would say that seriously. So I would look at that, not that, I'm not bashing that comment, but to me, my curiosity was, how is that even possibly a thing? How is that such a concrete response? And then people would use it against you and they'd go, well, then why aren't we practicing 90% mental? It was like, why are we having a debate over this? So I could never understand that on my own end. So then when I had the yips and had some things, there were a couple of things. One, I wanted to understand self-talk. I wanted to understand progressiveness and psychological
visualization, all that.
Yeah, I wanted to understand all that stuff, and I didn't understand how guys couldn't sustain the progress of it. I wanted to know how to do that, and so, yeah, to a large degree, mine more so was dismantling sports psych, and I wanted to make it to a position where guys would want to do it, but more so, I wanted to do it where if you did it and you trained your mind, you would feel progress. And through the years, the reason why Mind Strong does a lot of things that we do is, and Fergus Conley said this to me a few months ago, I was always calling it mindset through movement. Fergus Conley took that and slammed it on my head and really blew me away when he said psychology is unsolved physiology. And that was when I love that. Yeah, it was like years of what I was studying came to make sense to me in a moment's time, because I've always felt that if I could train my mind through my physiology, my biology, now I have control. So if you want actual control, you need to stress the organism, and you need to understand how to shift in and out moment to moment. That's the mark of a performer. And I was pissed because I wasn't taught that, So
are any of us though? Like, are any of us taught that?
I don't know.
You mentioned in the podcast, you said something, I forget the exact wordage, I'll butcher it, but the mind is just something that's not the body, like not learn the body or something. Now I can't remember.
I always say the language of the mind is the language of the breath. I know a lot of people always bring that up to me on what I mean by that, but basically your mind is triggered through experiences through the way that you breathe. So if you're breathing or seeing habitually, you use these tactics physiologically to bad experiences that you've had in your life. So if you had something that happened 10 years before, like it's hard to go into that and fix that leak at a psychological level, because you would have to do some absolute deep diving. So to ask somebody to do that in the moment, is borderline. I don't even know if that's actually possible.
Yeah. That's the whole thing with like baseball, or I guess just athletic performance, right? Because like we have past experience. And then we have like this futuristic kind of like predictability type thing that we do as ball players, right? Like you're in the bullpen or something. And then it's like, okay, but how can I take everything that I have an opportunity to consume or like put thought to, conscious thought, and then clear the mechanism and then try to find like flow and then rely on that, right? So that's what I'm geeking out about these days, man, is like, how can I almost manipulate that, right? Like how can I essentially self-identify the best characteristics and the best way to really maximize on-field performance, but at the same time, not put conscious thought to it? It's freaking stupid.
Yeah, it's wild, right? Well, it's you really want to get yourself to work, autonomically, your autonomic nervous system. Obviously, it, so robotic. It's cool to talk to you about it, right? But it's when you have you want to be automatic, and that would be like your thoughts aligned with your autonomic nervous system. So if you're sympathetic or you're stressed out, that's fine, but sympathetic, if you're going to be competitive, would be considered fight, right? That would be in a controlled arousal state compared to freeze. So It's not like we can't avoid discomfort. We can't avoid stress. We need to invite it. We just
Mm-hmm.
need to know the conscious choice making of what part of our involuntary systems serve us, and then make those choices. And that's where I
Yeah.
think is where it
Yeah.
becomes fun.
100%. 100%. And I think, and for me, honestly, like, and I don't know where you stand with like placebo,
Yeah.
but I'm like trying to kind of discover more and more because as you know, like an athlete, like, dude, what are we but, just a kind of a sum of just total confidence, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you know better than anyone, like the best moments of your career as a performer,
Yeah.
you can like look back and be like, dude, why was I so confident that day?
Yeah.
Like that's the difference between, and it's so hard, right? Because it's like, okay, well now the question is how can I be confident when like I don't feel good or when I don't feel confident or whatever it is. So then now I'm like on this path of like the placebo of, okay, let's check every single box that we can possibly check, and therefore hopefully get in that kind of like systematic approach of like the subconscious understanding that we've done everything in our power to be 100% ready and convicted in the moment. So then therefore there's no subconscious thought of, dude, we're not ready, we're not prepared. Because I think a
Yeah.
lot of it, dude, you look at performance and you look at like the preparation,
Yeah.
and I mean it's no accident that the best performers are those who are just always kind of identified what they need to do and
For
when
sure.
they need to do it to
For
be able
sure.
to be at their maximum potential.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, well, and I know for me personally, because you can kind of flip that around and go, okay, well, I've always been a guy, like I said earlier, again, not to toot my own horn, but like I've always checked the boxes. I've always worked hard from the physical standpoint,
Sure.
right? I've never gone about like the approach of smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's so cool now being on kind of this entrepreneur route and learning that process of efficientness,
Yeah.
if you will, and how can I best apply that to performance. So yeah, man, there's like I don't know how to kind of put the words in with placebo and how I think we can essentially train that, but I think finding a way to give external affirmations to accumulate confidence within somebody. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's characteristic traits involved, but it's huge, right? Because we can obviously say that confidence is an internal thing and it's a very temporary thing, but it's huge.
I'll
So,
tell you, man,
oof.
that's a great breakdown. And I've never really been directly asked, I suppose, on the placebo. Maybe I have, just nothing recent. But I would almost say that everything is placebo because the mental, anything of performance is subjective. The frustration,
Yep.
the frustration with mental workings or mental game, if you will, is that it's entirely subjective. So it's a perception based
Right.
topic. And so if you
Yeah.
go into the topic, if you think the teacher sucks, well then you just perceive it as worthless.
Yeah. How do you quantify it?
Yeah, it's all subjective. So I would even say that the whole system is placebo because you can create it, and it's
Right.
always I always go back and forth with guys up here, but in fun ways. But we always talk about, well, what is good and what is bad. Well, is anything good
Right.
and is anything bad? And
Right.
so you nailed some things in there. But one thing that I'd be really curious too is how you said working smarter, right, and not
Right.
being check everything off. How have you worked on that? Not necessarily baseball or entrepreneur, but just in general, because that's something that I think most athletes are going to struggle with after sports is getting to that perception of growth of what you just said, of understanding that they are improving, not having
Right.
to burn the fuel all the time.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, my brain initially went to just like the power of like essentially like writing stuff down and
Yeah.
self-identifying the best way to kind of like approach the way that you learn, right? So
Okay.
like essentially like the way that, and this, the way that everybody on this face of the earth has like approaches things differently. We
Yeah.
learn differently, we consume differently, we do X, Y, and Z differently. So it's like as much as I look at, so for example, say I look at like your podcast and Mind Strong stuff and the way that you guys approach certain things, it's like as much as I would love to be that guy,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. So therefore I need to do my due diligence
Mm-hmm.
and like identify, okay, well, how can I best learn? How can I best
Ah,
grow? What does
that's
that look
beautiful.
like for me?
Yeah.
So therefore, and I'm on a big kick right now of like information retention,
Okay.
and how like if you really don't, put it to action, the brain's just kind of gonna not,
Right.
retain it.
Right.
So if there's any like goodness, I carry around a notebook. I got like 9 whiteboards, but my handwriting sucks, so I can't even read that one. But like trying to retain information, right? So like
Yeah.
every day is kind of a self-discovery for me too.
Yeah.
So learning about myself, if I'm consuming content, if I'm consuming, a podcast, whatever it is, and I kind of have this in like idea or this like, oh, dude, that clicked. Okay, well, why did that click for me and not something else? All right, now let me like kind of sit there and meditate on why that was. Okay, I got to write that down. Like, boom, there's a big hit, right? So
Yeah.
there's that big kind of aha moment. And I think if we don't do that for us, because life and the experience of life is going to show you so many of your own true colors.
Absolutely.
But if you are not intentional about the like retention of those moments, then you're going to let them pass for no good or no bad,
Yeah.
right? They're just going to be moments. And if you don't do your part and really consume everything that there is from the learning standpoint from a moment, then it's gone, right? So like that was my biggest struggle in my baseball journey was, we always make the argument of like, oh, the best what are the best moments come from failure, or like
Yeah.
insert cliche moment here.
Yeah.
And it's true, dude, but if you don't do your part and like try to learn from it rather than just kind of accepting it and then being like, all right, dude, like I'll get them next time, even though there's a moment for that too.
Right on.
But they can be great teaching points if you allow them to be great teaching points. And again, that was my biggest struggle early in my career was I was facing failure, and I knew all the motivational like
Yeah.
speeches of like failure's great. So I was like, okay, failure's great. Like
Yeah.
just walking through this failure here, just, living the
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really being intentional. And again, dude, I was 18, 19, 20 years old
Right.
I had hair at the time, so I thought I was cool. So I didn't know what I was doing, man.
Well, no, it's something that really triggered me there to think about is the cliches. But cliches are true. It's like common sense isn't that common. People, I've always thought of it as, well, imagine if we all just did the cliches or all made great common sense choices. Well, what would be the struggles?
It would be great.
What would we run into? What issues would we run into? And that sort of becomes the struggle, is getting to the cliche, right? Or
Right.
understanding the truth behind the cliche. And
Right.
it's
Right.
it's weird because you're so right, because you do have the opportunity to. It's almost, if you listen to a motivational speech when you're frustrated or failing, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes worse, right? It's like if you're
Mm-hmm.
not in a position to learn the content, or you're not in a position to understand the content or want to, then it almost pushes you back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a coach, and as you kind of take yourself as a player and then now coaching, have you seen that where you go, I've been where this guy is, I've thought how this guy's thought, and no matter what I say to this guy right now, it's just not time. Like he's just not ready. It doesn't matter what we talk to. How have you sort of handled that or experienced that, I suppose?
Mm. Dude, that's so good. Yeah, dude. So I try to really get to know the person, and I
Okay.
try to get him to, throughout the me discovering him, I'm trying to get it to where he's discovering himself too. So I ask questions like, what do you find joy in? Right.
Yeah.
So like, again, this is like an online client where I'm working with him remotely on,
Right.
I'm going better my mechanics, and I'm coming back with questions like, dude, what do you find joy in, man? What brings you an abundance amount of
Yeah.
satisfaction?
I
Right?
love it.
Like
I
wax
love it.
on,
I love
wax
it.
off.
I love it.
But so here's the thing, man, is like at a certain point we talk about how like, more load or more input sometimes is like the typical reaction or the response that we go to,
Yeah.
but it's not always the case that is, the whole good or bad thing.
Right.
So for me, I always like want to kind of establish a foundation of, okay, well, what things can we always revert to that are going to bring about that joy and that almost calmness?
Okay.
Because I kind of believe that, we go through the biggest growth stages are when we can kind of like identify the anchors.
Mm-hmm.
and like going back to your anchors, and it kind of, again, I'm biased because the biggest points in my life has been when I've really established my anchors and what, allows me to
Yeah.
kind of show that gratitude when I perform. So if I'm working with someone, like I want to know, like, essentially maybe trigger words or like what he needs to do to get back to, that gratitude moment. So like if a kid, for example, I have a client, later today, and his thing is like, okay, well, for me to kind of experience joy and satisfaction, it's like I need to go to a movie. I'm like, okay, dude, well, if it gets to a point where, we're not making progress through input, then it's like we need to hit the reset and we need to go see a movie, dude, and
Yeah.
then come back, and kind of, then we can kind of progress moving forward. Because again, this is a trial for me too, because it's such a passionate thing and it hits close to home, right? So if
Right.
you're working with someone with the yips, it hits close to home because you know how much of a struggle, you know how much of a grind it is. All you want to do is help this person.
Right.
You want to help see it through. So again, that whole response, that instinct, that human instinct is like, oh, dude, here's more, here's more,
Right.
here's more, here's more. And like we can only kind of think so many things.
Right.
So for me, it's kind of like that's one anchor system that I'll use. And then another one that I'll use from the physical standpoint is like, okay, well, what can we do from the physical standpoint that allows you to just train the motor control pattern without putting so much mental emphasis on something?
Nice.
Because you know how it is, man. You get a guy that's like trying to work on his delivery, and I'm like, hey, dude, like, all right, for this particular throw, what's your mindset, man? And he's like, okay, well, I'm trying to leg lift and I'm trying to separate my hands on time with my leg lift. I'm trying to descend down the mountain. I'm going to try to keep heel contact.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, like this thing is happening within 2.1
Yeah.
seconds. And you're trying to think of 88 different things, dude. Like,
Yeah. It doesn't work.
let's simplify. All
Right.
right. Right. So like, all right, how can we train motor control patterns without having that mental cognitive of
Love that.
thinking? Right.
Love that.
Because, and it's funny because you can sit there and say like, hey, don't think, hey, do this, do that. But man, it's one of those things, dude, when you're failing. And again, I know you know this, but like when you're failing, all you want to do is not fail.
Right.
And your instinct is to go up here with it. That self-talk, the visualization, all of these things that are mainstream things that maybe could help,
Right.
that you put mental emphasis on. And yeah, there's so much there. But yeah, man, I try to find like physical and mental freedom
Yeah.
through uses of like anchors, or even, if his thing is like, okay, let's find a throw variation in which you don't have mental thought. And that's usually that kind of variation. Even if it's a pitcher, I'm going to roll you a 6-hole grounder, dude. I want you to go backhand and Jeter throw to first,
For
or
sure.
like whatever it
For
is, right?
sure.
Where you don't have time to think,
No.
you don't have time to thought process. It's action, it's flow. So let's manipulate that and then train those motor control patterns. So therefore, we can kind of get a good recognition for what that almost feels like and what that visualization is. And then let's get back on the mound. And a lot of times, dude, when guys struggle with that, and I wish someone did this for me, get off the mound,
Yeah.
right? So like the
Great.
body is super adaptable to understanding its environment. So if you put it in that same environment in which it knows and comprehends past failure and past struggle in a specific environment,
Yeah.
dude, we're not going to do any good there.
Right.
Right. Like we're not going to see any growth. We're not going to see progress because we have this kind of mental barrier that we first and foremost need to freaking block
Yeah.
and break through. So let's find that alternative. Let's get off the mound, check the ego at the door, truly like assess this situation of what is the underlying issue? What is the why? Okay, let's ask those questions, and then let's be precise and intentional in how we approach this, right? Let's not just oh, I heard this kind of key phrase and I'll throw it your way, and oh, maybe this drill works, and
Yeah.
kind of the guess and check, which is fine. Guess and check and trial and error, like all these are great things, but I think there's a lot to be said about just the intentionality and kind of the precise, the precision of things like that.
I'm right on with that,
Sense?
man. Yeah, it makes tremendous sense. That's phenomenal, and it makes me think to ask you in that position. Do you have trouble seeing that peace of mind from the generations younger? What's sort of the age gaps? Do you see people start seeing that differently or hearing that differently? Or
Yep.
yeah, kind of go with that concept, because that
So
I get what you're saying, but I could see someone being almost frustrated with, like, I believe in what you're saying. I think that what you just said is
Yeah,
amazing, but I could see a guy going like, no, and almost
100%.
getting frustrated.
100%. Yeah, yeah. Like, why am I going to you? You said
Right.
you work with me on the mountain, like all this
Right.
stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, to the point of like the age, and again, like you and I's generation, I think we were on the cusp of the whole millennial thing, but
For
like
sure.
we're not technically like in that millennial thing.
For
So
sure.
the way that I look at it, and this is a big kick that I'm on right now as well, is just simple problem solving strategy.
Love it.
So when you and I were growing up, it was like, we faced kind of this problem. It wasn't like, hey Siri, what is this? Like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like that instant gratification, that instant feedback to just have that without truly assessing in your own mind the problem solving strategy and growing through that problem, even if it was like the littlest thing of a Lego breaking or a
Right.
freaking, your go-kart not working or whatever it was. It was like, it was still training that pattern of, okay, here's my problem, and then like let's go through a series of checklists on like why this problem occurred and how can I now solve this problem.
Sure.
So I see that a little bit more, again, I know a lot of people give me kind of crap for always harping on the millennials, and I don't try to do it.
Right.
I just see what I see, and then I process the information, and
You
I
speak it.
give back.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of one common thing that I see a lot. 9 out of 10 kids these days, they're so used to that instant gratification and the lack of true specific problem solving strategy, that when they do face a problem, whether it be physical or mental or both or whatever it is, it's like the frustration is then kind of built and exacerbated. I don't know if that's the right word, but like, gr- just blown up
Sure.
because of their not knowing, problems, and not knowing how to like solve it for themselves, because they've never really kind of experimented or
Right.
experienced that type of dynamic. They're just so used to having like that thing that they don't know, and then therefore snap of the fingers, YouTube, Instagram, Google, it's all there.
Oh yeah.
So they're used to that without the retention of that information, the retention of the process to accumulate that information. So it's interesting seeing it,
Yeah.
right? Because again, like I'm not, if I was 14 right now, I would do the same thing. We're a
Right.
product of the environment,
Right.
right? So we
Right.
don't really know any better. But it's kind of, for me, it's tough, because on some cases I want to give that, what I just kind of like talked about. I want to give that to the individual and express that and kind of get them in the know of that. And then some types of individuals are different. Their characteristic traits are different. Then you don't need that, because that's just more input that they don't
Absolutely.
need. So it's such a process, man, of like truly identifying like okay, if I really truly want to help this individual, I need to like do my part and be precise in how I go about that. But yeah, man, it's interesting to see how, as our technology grows and how our access to information grows, how that affects the the generation and the individuals.
Yeah, you said something there. I mean, you nailed that again, man, because it's hard to coach. You find it very difficult, and I get this across many fields, not just baseball, but you're on call of everything you say. So you could say something and that gets taken and it gets Googled or YouTubed or it gets
Oh,
debunked
yeah.
or it gets chased down, and it makes it very difficult, but you've said it a bunch already. If you create the personal relationship, if you care about the person, typically you don't really have a very difficult problem with that. It typically, if
Yeah.
anything, if you build a good relationship with the person you're working with and they do bring back their own research, you're pretty much pumped for them, right? You're kind of,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's cool. I've actually enjoyed a lot of the guys that I train in other sports as well. I have a guy, a hockey guy, who, if you tell him one thing, he goes home and researches the entire thing and brings it to me. And we have great discussions. We almost, sometimes I'm almost learning from him, and we talk about that a lot, where I
Yeah.
want that. And let's
Dude,
just
yeah.
build it, because people really just want to trust you that you're helping them, and you just
Right.
want to trust that they want to give their best, you
Well,
know?
yeah, and then you have from the coaching side too, like there's so many interesting like concepts to that, because from the coaching side is like, again, talking about like that human instinct,
Yeah.
the coach and the instructor are supposed to be know all, right? They're supposed to be
Right.
all knowing.
Right. You
They're never
never
wrong.
screw up.
So
Right.
I think the biggest thing for me coming, again, this is the whole playing perspective and learning through my journey, is like the best coaches that I've had aren't necessarily the coaches that know the biggest amounts of information or know the biggest, words in the
Yeah.
dictionary.
Yeah.
It's the coaches that establish that personal relationship. So therefore now as a player, I can kind of instill that comfort around that coach, right? We talk about like that fight or flight type kind of response, parasympathetic. So now every time I can go to him, I'm not having to be guarded
Right.
and kind of, watch what I say. I can be now myself and be comfortable, and that's going to breed over into the mound on the mound. And I think another component to the coaching thing too, man, is like, I think the instinct, and I struggle with this as well, man, because obviously in a day and age where like your resume is on Instagram and it's all
Yeah.
access for everybody,
Yeah.
it's really, you have to be really precise with like everything you put out there. And I remember when I started my business, I was like, okay, everything I put out there is like got to be true. It's got to be factual, right? Like I have to
Yeah.
do all this. And then
Yeah.
I realized, dude, is like the personal thing about that is anytime like a coach or an instructor or whatever can like truly show humanity and be like, dude, sometimes I'm wrong. I'm learning from you too.
Yeah.
Like all of this is just for everyone's personal growth, like this is what I got. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, like anytime a kid comes back with like, hey, this and that, it's like freaking, hey, man, that fires me up. Like,
Yeah.
cause now therefore I'm growing, I'm learning
Tremendously.
from that, right?
Tremendously.
If I'm in that mindset and that kind of that headspace of consuming that growth, rather than, I think a lot of kind of coaches are guarded against that, right? They fear that type of
Being
you
wrong.
know they
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
rather than like, dude, if I'm on this path, which I am right now, of like just total human optimal performance, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to freaking fly, dude.
Yeah.
Like, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
If I'm on that path, I'm trying to consume and like articulate and like all of this stuff with every single moment that passes by in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many moments that we can take advantage of, dude. And if I'm kind of guarded through those and I fear intellect, then I'm not going to be able to grow and learn from that, and that's why I love like networking, like, jumping on this podcast with you, man, is like, freaking A, like
Yeah.
there's so much access to that growth and
Oh
there's so
yeah.
much access to that, and we can take full advantage of it if we want. It's a choice. We talk about choices, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a huge component to all of it.
No, likewise, man. And that's where I know in terms of our days, this is where it's pretty sweet too, because we can kind of finalize it. We always take everyone through what we call the Diamond Series. So being a baseball guy always hits close to home. But we'd established our Diamond Series back in the day. That was sort of our principles that we put forth, and whenever we'd want to go out and research or pick up clues that people were doing. But it's always gone around home plate first, second, third, being purpose, standards, systems, and vision. And we've always liked to ask people, about where they're at. And I think your headspace right now is, I love the vibrancy of what you're saying, because I align with that. And I knew we would vibe out like
Vibrancy.
this anyways.
Oh,
Yeah.
word of the day.
Yeah. So I knew we were going to have a fun conversation and dive into this. But so now if you peel into yourself, not as a coach, the reason why I want to tailor it towards this, one, because of your time, obviously, but two, because you just said getting human optimal performance. So when you think about Robby, when you think about yourself as an individual, and you think about all of life until today, right? It's not a concrete answer, but the purpose or the why that you bring in, or the intentions you bring into your day, we sort of look at that as, how do you identify with yourself? How do you serve others? And then our favorite is, what are you willing to struggle for? So when you think about right now in your life, what seems meaningful to you that's worth pursuing, that's a struggle?
Whoa, man, that's got to be a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah,
smokes.
get your floaties on, man. We're in the deep end. We're in the deep end.
Dude, oh, the deep blue sea. Oh man, there's so much good in that, dude. It's funny because like you'll be talking and I'll just be listening, thinking like I'm just lilistening to you as a podcast, and then I'll be like, you just asked a question. Holy smokes. Where am I? But yeah, man, I think I think it boils down to like all right, so I think my whole, if you will, mantra of like why I guess I started everything that you see from the Instagram, from all of these kind of social networks and business and whatever, it's kind of this sense of responsibility of, being that person that kind of went through everything for a purpose. So therefore I can kind of give back to everybody and be the best version of myself. So then therefore I can, have other people grow from that. And I think, again, when we talk about, what is truly like a foundation and what truly brings you joy, I think for me, it constantly comes back to like the ability to cause positive effect towards other human beings
Mm-hmm.
and be like, that positive kind of anchor for other people, because the world's dark and, there's like a lot of bad in the world. So
Yeah.
I think for me, it's about, okay, now how can I go about that process as most like efficiently as possible? And if I'm trying to go about this process of essentially like, being positive every single day to make someone's day better, or, be, someone else's kind of inspiration, motivation, insert type of word there or
Right.
whatever, then therefore I need to be the best version of myself every single day.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
And this is kind of, it's funny, we didn't even dive into this part, but like throughout my process of we can talk about the baseball journey and the performance side, and we can talk about just life in general. It's been that constant learning curve of self-discovery of what I need to do to like essentially wake up in the morning, dude, and get out of bed
Yeah.
and be like, all right, I
Let's
feel
go.
freaking great.
Yeah.
I am able to learn today. I'm grateful for X, Y, and Z. I can consume that. All right, now I can approach this day better. So then therefore I am better equipped to affect other people.
Yeah.
And you mentioned well, I had an acronym for it. BNMS, breath, nutrition, movement, and sleep.
Sleep. Yeah.
And it's funny, dude, because we we look at things of like, okay, all right, what is in my control for the 16 hours that I'm awake? What can I control, today to better equip myself for X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
And it's a direct correlation to essentially like my baseball performance side, because the things that were within my control. Again, I was drafted at 18, dude. I didn't
Yeah.
know what eating right was. I didn't know what
No
sleeping
shot.
right was. I
Right.
slept in an apartment with 8 other dudes on an air mattress that popped in the middle of the night every single night. Right? So it's like, okay, I can roll out of bed, dude, and throw freaking 100. Like that's all I need to worry about,
Right.
right? So then, therefore, it became this kind of embarkment on, like I said, human performance and just human optimization. And then I started diving in and, to all of those concepts I just mentioned with breath, nutrition, movement, and sleep, optimize like the breathing pattern and allowing that to kind of be a segue into that trying to find flow, right? So we talked earlier about, all right, check every single box in the
Yeah.
preparation topic, and then now when I get out onto the mound, it's breath, focus on breath, gratitude, joy, and fun.
Wow.
So therefore I can find myself flow. Right.
Beautiful.
And then we talk about nutrition. Okay, in 2017, that's when I really started like taking this seriously and diving into all of the like I geek out on this stuff, but like I got into like the ketogenic space and biohacking and all of these like nerdy kind of concepts.
Absolutely.
But that kind of piggybacked off each other, and then therefore we talk about how I am just as a natural curious person, and then therefore I was able to find the optimal nutrition for me and what allowed me to feel better. And then we talk about movement and optimizing my movement. I had 2 surgeries, one specifically with the lat, and you know this better than anyone probably, like the athlete, we're just great compensators, right? So we talk about quality of movement. The mind kind of just labels that as safe and X, Y, and Z. We don't need to talk about that, but yeah, the compensation of blowing out the lat and having that deficiency. So therefore that blew out. And then, okay, well, we got to go back to the drawing board and really hammer home movement.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now we got 3 of the 4. All right. Sleep. Okay. Well, how can I really optimize this? All right. Partnered with freaking this ring company that gives me all this data.
Yeah.
Love numbers. So I was like, all right, how can I optimize this? All right, boom. All right, let's do this experiment with this. Let's biohack our sleep, blue light blockers. We got it. Boom, boom, boom. Weighted blanket. All right, freaking parasympathetic nervous. Dude, let's go. And bro, and then after a while, you kind of just check all of these boxes, and again, throughout the process of self-discovery and learning all of this about yourself, right, and learning about optimization, then therefore you're in a better, not just mental headspace to affect people, but like physical space as well, dude, because this task, like it's funny, dude. I'll tell my mom this too. It's like when I have a lot of desk work and I sit here and I work clients and stuff and say I go for like 10 hours, I'm more physically exhausted than that
All day.
than I am when I played like a
All
doubleheader,
day.
like
Yeah. All
and
day.
did that. So
Yeah.
I can't be the best version of myself and cause, positive change unless I'm physically and mentally in a place to do so. So,
Oh man.
yeah, man, I don't know if I answered that question
No, you
either, but
nailed it.
like just
You
wanted to hammer that too.
you nailed it. Well, and you nailed it. And it's you're doing, it's awesome, man. It's really fun listening to you talk, and I'm really happy for a lot of people who will be able to hear this in the, not just the baseball world, the performance world, because you're really touching on a lot of primal, instinctual things that need to be documented on your own, and then they
Mhm.
need to be enhanced, And so to sort of
Mhm.
tie it up, we always kind of look at it as like I said, third base is the vision. You kind of just nailed a lot of the standards and systems. So when you think about your vision and where this is all going, and you have a lot of life to live, right? You got baseball, you're still throwing, you're still doing all these sort of things.
Oh,
You've got
no,
your
we don't know
workroom. Yeah,
that.
exactly. We don't know where this is going to take. So when
Right.
you think about your life and where you sort of see it, what's the carrot out in front of you that you're chasing right now, that is immediate of what you're trying to go out and accomplish?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So this is funny because we talk about like a lot of motivational speakers. We talk a lot about like goal specific orientation and all of
Yeah.
these things. And we hit on it before where, you were talking about your goal of playing for a team with a, MLB logo. And I
Yeah.
talked about how like I wanted to get drafted high and somehow kind of over time. So now the way that I kind of orientate, essentially goal driven approaches or whatever, it's all in 24-hour time frames. It's all, or I
Wow.
guess 16 hours if I'm sleeping 8.
Yeah.
And it's all right, let's check all these boxes today. And then I'm better equipped to moving forward towards tomorrow. I
Hmm.
don't really set aside like this, all right, here's my whiteboard. Here's the biggest,
Yeah.
overall goal, and then like these are the steps to accomplish that. I kind of still do that with, I guess, like my personal baseball development.
Sure.
um but for me, and self-identifying what's going to allow me to be the best version and best player and the best, you know son, brother, whatever
Yeah.
that I can be, is about controlling, the day that I have, right? Because
Right
like we're
on.
not, I hate to get too deep and philosophical with it, but like we're not guaranteed tomorrow, right? I
No.
I, I had a guy on the podcast the other day, and he was talking about like, and this didn't even hit me for some reason, but he was talking about how the pandemic has taken away so many people's baseball seasons, and
Hmm.
how many of those players, say like high school players, right, or college players, were sitting there before the season was canceled, thinking like, oh, dude, I have like all year to worry about
True.
this and that. Like, bro, we're not guaranteed, man. And I think it's easy with the way that life is, because for some reason we have this potential, this perception of life, and think about this whole long thing, and
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to do this today, I'll do it like next week, and so on and so forth. But like in the grand scheme of things, dude, I don't know about you, man, but I was just 18 like yesterday.
Yeah. An hour ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, if we're not if we're not intentional with how we go about it every single day, then I think it'll pass us by. um but yeah, man, I mean, I'm just trying to build a freaking empire, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, do everything that I can to just cause positive affection, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know, but yeah, I don't. I used to be it's so funny too, because just the way that like my characteristic traits have kind of evolved over time. Is like I was every season, dude, before I would leave to spring training, I had a whiteboard in my room. And before I literally started the truck and then left, I
Yeah.
had this whiteboard that I'd be like, all right, here's my time
Here it is.
whiteboard goals. Boom, goal, goal, goal,
Yeah.
goal,
Oh, yeah.
goal.
I was the
Like
same
that was
way.
me to a T,
Yeah.
dude. That was me to a T. And it was like I kind of started realizing that the way that I perceived those goals affected me in a mentally draining way.
Absolutely.
If
Absolutely.
I wasn't close to accomplishing a goal, say at like the All-Star break, it kind of was here, right?
Yeah.
And or even if it was like a goal that was subconscious, it was like failure, right?
Yeah.
So like, then we can talk about like, how does an individual perceive success and failure, and then
Right.
how can we manipulate that to therefore better our placebo effect.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, so that was me. And now I'm kind of just, again, dude, I'm all right. So I woke up this morning, I'm grateful for that. I have, say, X amount of hours. In this next hour, I'm going to try to accomplish freaking the 333 tasks that I have to accomplish in the next hour. And then, we'll check that box, dude, and we'll move forward. So that's all I can do, right? Control the
Well,
controllables.
absolutely, man. Well, I got to tell you from my end, and I know we'll keep talking and keep pushing each other forward too. I'm grateful to have your time, brother. I know to set this up, we connected rather quickly and we're able to find some time to communicate and to give away your time, man. I like to thank everybody for that, as that comes off as the highest sense of currency. So it's exactly what you're
Right.
saying, and to hand
Right.
that over to Mindstrong and myself, I'm pumped to pass the torch of what you're doing, brother. You're doing a phenomenal job. It's fun
Uh,
to watch. It's really cool to talk to you and hear about your mindset and your philosophy deeper. That always
yeah.
sort of catapults you, to more curious about these individuals. So you gave that to myself, and what you're doing for not just baseball, but what we're talking about. You're doing it
Right.
for humans, and I think that's amazing. You're using a platform, you're executing on it, and you're doing it in a really fun, cool, advancing way. So from us, keep rolling, but more so, Robby, dude, thank you for the time, man. It's really fun to talk to you.
No, man, dude, thanks so much for having me. And that just like again, that reminded me of the thought that I thought we were going to bring up, but like the ability for a person to surround themselves with other people that they want to like be like or
Yeah,
think like,
yeah,
that's huge,
yeah,
especially in like in today's society, right, where we have access to like podcasts and stuff. Like consume that,
for sure.
which you kind of so yeah, and piggyback off that, man. Like I look at you guys and what you're doing over there, man, and like I put that at a high standard. It's like, okay, I want to get there, so what do I need to do to get there? Like I
Yeah,
need to freaking listen and consume what they're saying.
yeah.
So it's like, hey, I appreciate what you're doing, man. So thank you for your time and what you do for everyone, really.
I appreciate that, brother. Well, hey, how can people get in touch with you or find out a little bit about you?
I'm only on TikTok.
Okay.
So oh no. Where can they not find me? Shoot.
Yeah.
Website. That's a good starting point. TheRobbieRowShow.com. I made that before I even really thought that that might come off as cocky. It just rhymed, so I went
Yeah, I
with it.
love it, man. I love it.
TheRobbieRowShow.com has got my website. Podcast is The Robbie Rowe Show Podcast. Again, didn't really think too much into that one. But yeah, and then Instagram, TikTok. I have a TikTok.
There you
Robbie
go.
Rowe 1 2. It's Robbie with a Y. Yeah, I mean, shoot, where can you not find me, man?
I love it.
I love to talk. I love being in front of a camera. It's like it's a culmination of disaster waiting to happen. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Well,
That's pretty
thanks for the golden nuggets, brother. We'll pass the torch and look forward to sharing this. So everyone go out and check out Robby and check out what he's doing. But again, man, hey, enjoy the rest of your day, brother.
Yeah,
And we'll talk to you soon. All right.
appreciate you, man.
All
Take
right.
care.
Cheers, brother.